following podcast may contain adult language and an abundance of salt. So get ready to assume the position, nerds, because we're talking 80s cop movies.
Yeah.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Salty Nerd Podcast. I am your host today, Matthew Kadish, author extraordinaire. Alex, our normal host, is out with family obligations, so I will be taking over hosting duties. And with me, as always, is a fantastic panel of nerds, starting with the love of my life, the ambassador of estrogen herself, Jude Juju. How you doing, Jude?
Good. I don't know that we can call ourselves a panel today because we're a man down.
We're a triumvirate.
And
we're the triad of nerds.
making his triumphant return back to the podcast after a brief hiatus is the man, the myth, the legend, the barbarian space Viking himself, Matt Vader 74. How you doing, buddy?
I'm good, buddy. Happy to be back.
What the fuck are you wearing?
You know, this is my homage to all the bad guys in 80s movies everywhere.
So in 80s movies, bad guys usually wore pantyhose over their face because it not only smushed up their face and made them look weird, but
it's hard to identify somebody wearing pantyhose.
Yeah, it was before face masks were a thing,
or like technology.
But you're wearing my fiance's fishnet neon green stockings.
That's all I had.
Oh, yeah.
Come on.
Stop smelling my fiance's stockings. When was the last time you wore those, Jude?
It's been a while.
It's funny every time I do it.
I feel weird about it, though. I don't think I washed them.
Yeah.
Vader appreciates that.
You're welcome.
We're very close on the Salty Nerd Podcast.
Yeah, we should share each other's underwear.
I did really miss you while you were gone.
Yeah.
Yeah, Vader is my fiance's work husband.
That's right.
So, and her wigs and stockings weren't getting much use without Vader around.
Yeah, so if you want to support the podcast and get Vader his own wigs and pantyhose.
Yes,
I got this one up on my Amazon wish list. It's like a great big 80s rocker hair one.
Nice.
But it's a brunette.
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
Yeah, you want to go brunette instead of blonde?
Well, whatever I'm feeling that day.
Yeah, I don't have any brunette wigs for you.
I tried on her a redhead pixie blonde wig one time and didn't really fit. It looked like more like Shemp. It was awful.
It's kind of weird that you've gotten so into wigs, Vader.
I know, dude.
It's like every time he comes over, Jude, you got any wigs?
Because that's metal. Check yourself.
It makes me.
It's very metal.
It's very 80s too.
It makes me feel kind of like not myself.
See, isn't it great to dress up?
I know it is. It's a lot of fun. I get the cosplayers now. I get it.
You get it. Okay.
I'm going to this. I'm going to the Star Trek convention like this.
I'm going to go as a green girl.
Oh, that's not a good thing.
All right, guys. So before we get into these movies, which we're going to be talking about, Cobra, Action Jackson, and Maniac Cop, let's take a break to hear a quick word from some sponsors. Hey everyone, welcome back. And if you want to help support the podcast, please be sure to go visit saltynerdclub.com. That will take you to our Patreon page where you can, sign up to be a patron, different tiers there, and you get different rewards for signing up. But more importantly, all of your money goes back into the podcast so we can afford to get Vader his own stockings to put over his face. And more wigs and all that good stuff. And it also helps us to create more and better content for you. So go to saltynerdclub.com and sign up. We really appreciate it. And we also have special stuff for patrons like outtake videos and special podcasts and things of that nature just to, make the money that you're giving us worthwhile.
Yeah, if we get enough money in the Patreon, why don't we get you like a leather vest with some fringe so you could wear that around town?
Yeah, maybe some nipple clamps.
Maybe, yeah.
Who says I don't already have some?
But I feel like the only thing that's missing from your ensemble is like a badass biker vest.
Oh, we could probably work something
Yeah,
out.
yeah. You need some fringe.
Yeah.
All right. So the first movie we're going to be talking about today is the classic Sylvester Stallone film Cobra. Jude, what is this movie all about?
Okay, 1986 Cobra, rated R with a runtime of 1 hour, 27 minutes with a budget of $25 million. What do you think it brought into the box, Mr. Vader?
60 million, 80 million.
Okay. I believe domestically it was 49 million, so it doubled its budget. But worldwide, what did you say it was, Kadish?
It brought in close to $200 million worldwide.
All right.
As well it should.
And that's 1980s money.
Yeah.
Right. I mean, this movie's badass.
This was peak Stallone, right?
Yeah.
Oh, this was at the height of
Yeah.
Stallone being Stallone.
Yeah.
Like, you weren't allowed to talk to him when you were on set because he was too important for you. Like,
Yeah.
like all the cast and crew members, they were just like, you can't speak to Mr. Stallone. He was always surrounded by his entourage.
Did he write the script for this?
He did.
Okay.
And he also directed this movie.
He did.
Not legally. So the guy who is listed as the director for this movie, his name is George P. Cosmatos, and he was a Greek director who's, you know, he did Rambo: First Blood Part 2, and so basically they did that movie right before they did this one. Sylvester Stallone brought him on to direct this movie. But on set, Sylvester Stallone was actually the one directing it. Like, he was shadow directing.
Okay.
I could see that. It's like, so you need to get over here, need to get your camera over there in that spot, you know, need to get it just right. Yeah, it's like,
Yeah, but this was at like the height of Stallone's ego trip, because he was just such a big Hollywood star. And so the initial script for this was Stallone was actually cast in Beverly Hills Cop. And this was the script for Beverly Hills Cop. And he rewrote that script to get rid of the comedy and make it more action oriented.
Okay.
And
God.
and the producers of that movie were like, this isn't what we signed up for. And so Stallone left that project and went on to do this.
Honestly, I think he made the right choice. I love this movie.
It's actually based on a book.
Yeah.
And the book is called, it's got a weird title. So it was originally called A Running Duck, but they changed that title to Fair Game. And they actually...
Which was the Cindy Crawford movie.
Well, so this movie was based on the book Fair Game. And then they adapted that book again years later as Cindy Crawford's big movie
Her
debut.
transition from
Modeling
to
acting.
movies.
I didn't even know she made a movie.
Yeah,
Oh,
yeah,
yeah.
it's with William Baldwin. And it's glorious. I love that movie.
It can't be good.
It's
I don't think I've ever seen
it's a
that.
Joel Silver film, and I think he just had the rights to it from this movie or something like that. Because this was actually a co-production between Cannon Films and Warner Brothers, and Joel Silver was a big Warner Brothers guy. And Cannon Films was trying to transition from low budget, like Chuck Norris style action movies, into bigger budget stuff, and this was like their first foray. So they had to do a co-production with a big studio because they didn't have the money to actually, you know, afford Sylvester Stallone. And this was kind of the start of their downfall because
Okay.
they started making like really expensive movies that they couldn't afford, and eventually they went bankrupt.
And Brigitte Nielsen is also in this, and she did, was it Rocky 3?
Rocky 4.
Rocky
She-
4,
I
the year
believe-
before with Stallone and Dolph Lundgren.
Yeah,
I
and,
believe-
Stallone was totally banging her.
Well, he was.
Oh,
they
for
were,
sure.
They were,
Yeah,
they were married.
Yeah,
Yeah.
So yeah,
yeah, but I don't think they got married before this movie. Am I right?
I just figured they were married during
She's
this movie.
so pretty in this movie.
She's wearing a wig the entire movie.
The blonde wig the blonde hair is a wig.
So every hairdo in this is a wig except for the short hair, because she had like super short hair during this time frame.
Well, she had super short hair in the Rocky movie.
Yeah, yeah. So that's her normal hair.
Okay.
And so in this movie, every time the hair isn't short, it's a wig.
Huh.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, here's the synopsis.
Okay.
In the new world, a totally made up cult thing, violent crime and murders happen every few seconds. It takes a real badass like Marion Cobretti to clean up the streets and protect the innocent from the senseless violence that's everywhere. The Night Slasher is a monosyllabic murder cult leader who believes that only the strong should survive in this world. Every night, he and his devoted followers, including a female cop, go out into the night preying on the weak, thinking that the murders are the work of one man, and when normal police work doesn't produce any results in finding him, the department unleashes the one-man army of Cobra to get the job done. Driving his awesome 1950 Mercury Monterey, sucking on a matchstick, and holding that gun with only the power of his waistband, Cobra doesn't play by bullshit rules, a.k.a. the law. When Brigitte Nielsen happens by a crime scene, she unknowingly becomes the only person who can identify the Night Slasher and therefore becomes his next target. Cobra must protect her from the entire cult. One by one, he sneaks up like a snake on each of the bad guys and takes them out until finally it's down to Cobra and the Night Slasher to see which of them is the great hunter.
Oh, that was really good.
Pretty good, right?
Yeah,
Jude's getting her synopsis skills down pat.
yeah, she is.
But I feel like Cobra is the quintessential 80s cop movie. Like when you think of like a badass 80s cop, it's either Lethal Weapon or this movie.
Yeah.
You know? And let's face it, Riggs was basically like Marion Cobretti just recycled.
Yeah, he just had a match in his mouth. So it's a completely different character.
There's a great line in this movie where Brigitte Nielsen's character is kind of giving him crap about his first name, where she's like Marion. And he's like, yeah, I always wanted something tougher, like Alice. I thought that was kind of funny. But
there's a lot of great one-liners in this movie.
Yeah, like what?
Like, say they took out all of the humor, but I disagree, because like
that was Beverly Hills Cop that they took the humor out of.
Yeah, to make this.
Well, no, to make Beverly Hills Cop, and they said we didn't want to do that, and so Sylvester Stallone took what he wrote for Beverly Hills Cop and made it into this.
But I thought he was making like a not funny version of Beverly Hills Cop. It was just
a more action-oriented version.
That's exactly what I'm saying. See, this is the problem with us. You don't fucking listen to me.
What?
No, so, like what you said earlier was that they took the humor out of Beverly Hills Cop and they made this more action-oriented movie. But I disagree, because I think this movie is hilarious. Like in the first scene with the bad guy, who, like, you know he's a bad guy as soon as he pulls up and takes that handicap shot.
It was budget Danny Trejo.
It really was budget Danny Trejo. But yeah, he takes the handicap spot on his motorcycle. You know, immediately he's like a bad motherfucker.
See, you know the thing about the whole opening of this movie, I don't know if they would be able to make this movie now.
Oh, they totally wouldn't.
Because it's literally a mass shooting event. This guy goes in and just starts blowing people away in a grocery store. He's blowing people
away in a grocery store.
In between, shooting up golf carts or grocery carts and, milk jugs.
Well, he's got a lot of bullets, and he's got to get rid of them. He's telling them, like, he wants, like, the video cameras, the news cameras, and Cobra comes in. He's got his match in his mouth, and he's got his gun in his waistband.
I don't deal with psychos.
He's got a knife in his hand that the bad guy doesn't see, and they're chit-chatting. And they're slinging, like, banter at each other. And he's like, I want the video cameras. And he's like, well, you want to talk? I'm a sucker for good conversation. And then he, like, flings his knife into the guy's chest.
but he also gets his tagline off there as well. It's like that made this whole movie. It was on all the posters and stuff. I remember right. Like,
what was it?
You're the disease.
Yes.
And I'm the cure.
Yeah.
That was like, whoa, Stallone has his new Arnold Schwarzenegger tagline.
And then he's like,
it was awesome.
Set up and payoff. He's been carrying that match in his mouth the whole movie. And then when we get to the final scene, he yells, chill out. And he lights the match and he sets this guy on fire.
Yeah, that end scene, we got to get there, but we'll get there in a minute.
Vader, do you remember, like, was there ever a time where people just chewed on matchsticks as they went about their daily lives?
After this movie came out, for a little while, I can remember that. I think I might have done it.
It's like toothpicks and matchsticks. People just walk around just.
Yeah,
I know
that people sometimes walk around with a toothpick, but I've never seen a human with a match. I still
do that sometimes. This was 86?
86, yeah.
I was 16, so. This movies like this had a weird effect on me. I remember. Yeah. I'd get the axes at the ranch. I would clean them together, and my dad would be like, "What you doing there, son?
Being a hunter?
Nothing. I'm gonna go kill something. Yeah,
just joining a cult, Dad." Yeah. So the book that this is based on, A Running Duck, the plot of that book is basically a woman kind of runs into this guy who looks like a businessman. His briefcase kind of spills open. She helps him clean it up, gives it back to him. And it turns out that this guy is like this famous international assassin that nobody knows what he looks like. And she saw like all of his targets and stuff like that when she was helping him clean up his briefcase. And so he comes after her to kill her because she's the only person who knows what he looks like. And a cop has to help protect her and keep her from getting killed by this assassin who keeps hunting them down, trying to kill her. And so
that sounds like an interesting movie.
Yeah. And so basically Stallone took this book, which I think Joel Silver had the rights to, and he kind of loosely based Cobra on it in the sense that Brigitte Nielsen sees who the night slasher is, and he starts trying to track her down and kill her, and he's going to come protect her. But this movie was actually famous for getting an X rating on its initial cut.
Really?
Yeah. So it was originally 2 hours long.
Sex scene?
No.
Or violence?
Yes. Like extreme violence. Like most of the action scenes in this movie were cut down because they were very kind of in your face, gory and violent.
It's still really violent.
Yeah, it
but
still
it's 80s violent.
Yeah.
It's kind of tame compared to like
very
what we see
tame.
now.
And what that means is just that like everyone dies.
Yeah.
I mean, if you want to get like 80s peak violence, you got to go to like RoboCop or something.
Yeah.
Because this, I didn't feel like that with this.
Yeah, but this was getting an R rating by the X rating by the MPAA, and Warner Brothers was like, we can't release an X-rated movie.
Right.
And they also didn't think that this movie was going to do very good. And so they forced Stallone to cut it down to about 80 minutes so that they could get more runs in the theater in order to make up their money quicker before like it was.
I'm not going to lie. When I was watching this and I turned it on, I go, and it says 90 minutes or 89 minutes or whatever. I'm like,
it was like 87 minutes.
I'm like, yes, this is how long a movie's supposed to be.
Yeah.
You know, it was great because I didn't have to invest half my afternoon into watching a single movie.
Mm-hmm.
It was, a 90 hour and a half long, not like all these movies they make today that are 2 hours, 2.5 hours.
And that
long.
was strictly so they could make as much money as possible off this movie. And also the 80s product placement in this film is off the charts, like
Coors and
Pepsi, Coors. There's even a moment where like they stop the movie to show a Toys R Us commercial.
Yeah.
Yes, they do.
They
While he's eating his
was good.
pizza and cleaning his gun.
Yeah.
There was
Which he keeps his gun cleaner in like an egg carton box
crate.
that he keeps in the
his
fridge. Yeah.
Yes.
I don't quite get that, but okay, whatever.
Yeah, this movie is all Stallone.
Yeah.
Like he wrote everything, he directed everything. Like this is pure, unadulterated,
I guess
unfiltered
he edited
Stallone.
it too.
Oh yeah. He was in the editing room, I guess. But at a certain point, like some crew member mouthed off to him, and it was the cinematographer where Stallone was giving him shit about taking too long with the lighting setups and getting behind on schedule. And the guy was like, if you actually stopped or took your hand off of Brigitte Nielsen's ass and came out of your trailer and stopped fucking around, we'd actually probably be on time. And that was like the first time in a long time that anyone had ever kind of gotten Stallone's face about like his behavior. And so like that kind of motivated Stallone to be like a little bit more,
hands on or off.
Like relatable, I guess, nicer.
Yeah.
Because he was like a huge prick during this time period in his career.
I thought for sure you were going to say that guy has never worked anywhere ever again.
His diva phase. He's like,
this was his
Rocky.
total
Rocky
diva
and
phase.
Rambo.
Yeah.
Do whatever I want.
He's the toughest man alive.
Yeah, there were, speaking, we didn't speak of, but actors in this movie. Andrew Robinson is in this, who played Garrick in DS9.
Mm-hmm.
Which I thought was fascinating when I started watching this. And I went, wait a second, I know that guy. And so I had to look it up and like, oh, it's Garrick from DS9. He was the asshole detective that Stallone hates. You're not there on Star Trek, I know. But you'll get there. But one of the most beloved characters in Star Trek ever is this character named Garrick. And he was in this movie.
Yeah, and Brian Thompson, who plays the Night Slasher, he's like a bad guy in like everything he's ever been in. Yeah, he was in Buffy a lot too as a bad guy. And he's just got one of those faces where like he looks evil. Yeah. So the cast for this movie was pretty good. Everything about this movie is just so 80s, like especially like the soundtrack. Like
oh my god, the soundtrack is a mess.
It really is.
The montages.
The montages.
There was 2 montages.
How about the modeling montage?
Three montages.
What fresh hell is that?
With all the robots.
A bunch of robots and Brigitte Nielsen in different wigs.
Yeah.
What is that a photo shoot for? What are we selling? It's so confusing.
Vader, do you remember the song for the Transformers movie, You Got the Touch?
No.
You got the touch.
I don't remember.
You don't remember that?
No.
Well, so like that was the big theme song for the Transformers movie. And that was originally supposed to be for this film. And they just, I guess they didn't finish it in time or something like that. So they or the scene that it was going to be used for got cut out. So they just moved that over to this Chuck Kids animated film.
Huh.
Yeah. But it's so funny because like you go from like scene to scene, set piece to set piece in this film. And the music just shifts radically and it was all so that they could sell a soundtrack for this thing.
Soundtracks were big.
They really needed to get their money out of it.
You couldn't you couldn't go to the store back then without seeing the soundtrack to these 80s movies everywhere. Yeah. They were all over the place, and people bought them, and they were good. They always had at least 1 or 2 hits.
But it is funny seeing like the attitude in this movie where like the cops are like, why do we have to follow these laws? We should just execute all these criminals. And like Cobra just treats every person he meets as like a piece of shit.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
he either kills them or he like bullies them or like something like that.
Oh my God. Okay. We have to talk about the scene where he comes up and the guy's car is like blocking where he wants to park.
Oh,
and he just rips the guy's shirt off and tells him, I'm bad for your health. And then the next time he sees him, the guy's like, okay, Mr. Stallone, sir, I'm going to move my car for you. And he's like, you're a good citizen.
That's right.
And it's weird because he gave Cobra this character trait where he's like super big into like health and fitness.
Yes.
You know, like he's always giving people a hard time, like you're eating too much red meat.
Yeah, you're eating too much sugar.
Yeah, too much sugar.
All the sugar you eat is making you violent.
Yeah, you put too much ketchup on those French fries.
He's like fat shaming everyone.
Your fries are swimming in ketchup.
Yeah, I mean, like he's such a weird character because like he's just a mishmash of all these things. So he works for on this thing called the Zombie Squad.
Yes.
Which I guess was like a real thing in Europe where you had these cops who would basically go out at night and interact with like pimps and hookers and stuff like that. And they were just called the Zombie Squad because they were up like late at night constantly. And so Stallone took that idea and put it into this movie. And so Marion Cobretti is like the head guy on the Zombie Squad in Los Angeles. And
he doesn't follow bullshit rules.
Yeah, they call him in when they need like dirty work done.
Uh-huh.
And apparently he's just immune to like civil prosecution and stuff like that.
All of the higher ups hate him. It's like unleashing the Kraken in the police force.
Well, there's this scene at the beginning, like right after he wastes that guy who did the shooting at the grocery store. And there's a reporter that gets in his face about like what about civil liberties? What about this and that? And like they just totally like just make a fool of that guy.
Fuck civil liberties.
Yeah, and it's kind of like in today's climate, it'd just be like, oh no, like Cobretti would be convicted for murder.
Speaking of civil liberties, I think the next movie that we're going to talk about deals directly with what happens when a police officer disrespects civil liberties.
Well, all these movies kind of have that theme in common.
That's kind of an 80s cop thing. Because the cops don't care about stuff that kind of hinders them and prevents them from doing their job.
Yeah, 80s cops were all about getting results and punishing the criminals.
Well, every 80s movie was about like getting results. Like you want a woman, you just take a woman. You could literally do anything you wanted in an 80s movie. You could just like walk into a public place, take a stranger, put her in your car, and then like make a bet with someone whether or not you get to keep her. And that was okay in an 80s movie.
What movie is that?
Same goes with cop movies. You could just literally do whatever you want.
Yeah. So remember how when we were watching this movie, so Stallone drives a very specific type of car. It's a 1950s Mercury.
That's awesome.
And I was like, that seems like a weird car for this character to be driving.
And the license plate says Awesome 50.
Yeah, Awesome 50.
Which also seems like a weird thing for Cobra to put on his car.
Well, so it turns out that was actually Stallone's car. Like he owned that car and he just wanted it in the movie.
That sounds right.
And so in the action scenes where like they're using it in the chase scenes and stuff like that, and it's getting all messed up, he made the production company create like replicas of his car that he could like then like have film getting totaled and stuff like that.
So I remember watching this movie and you're like, oh no, they're destroying that car. And it's just like,
but aren't you at the same time being like, why isn't Cobra driving a Cobra?
No, I never really thought about that, but I always liked his car. Never bothered me at all.
It's a good car.
Had a lot of attitude, just like Cobra did.
True.
So. Yeah, that's true. So basically, I told you guys that there was a print of this movie that was 2 hours long, and it was like rated X, and had like these super long, like violent scenes in it. And apparently, there's like a bootleg work print of that cut that got out at a certain point, and true fans of this film like track this thing down and get like bootleg VHS copies of this terribly edited together work print. I don't, but I've always wanted to see it because it's kind of like, I've actually never seen this movie before, today, the podcast.
Oh,
yeah. Like
wow.
That's right. You did say that.
Yeah. I'd always heard about it, but like, I'd never actually like sat down and watched it.
Well, you're welcome then.
Yeah. But now I'm really curious to see if I could track down that work print and see like the X-rated version of this film, because apparently they cut so much of it out that, they created like plot holes and pacing issues, which I didn't really notice too much because I mean, like it's a dumb 80s movie.
Yeah.
But apparently
maybe the soundtrack makes more sense in the 2 hour version.
Well, apparently the 2 hour version is just like a much smoother story, I guess.
Here's what I want to know. So this is the Night Slasher.
Yes.
Mm-hmm.
When was the Ramirez stuff going on?
The Night
That was in the
Stalker.
The Night
70s, I
Stalker.
think.
Yeah,
No,
that
that
was-
was the 80s too. It was like right around this time.
Was it? I
Yeah.
could have sworn it was like late 70s.
No. This was
Jude, Google that shit.
I'm
Yeah, Google
Googling it right now. The Night Stalker.
and the similarities between this and the real Night Stalker is kind of weird because even the look of the guy with the knife and everything, he's very David Ramirez.
Yeah.
So it seems very timely that they had this. So I'm wondering if there was any influence there. Because I want to say like 85, 86,
Vader's
87.
right. Span
Yeah.
of Crimes, 1984 through 1985.
So it probably was inspired.
It might have been.
Yeah.
So there was an alternate ending to this movie originally. It was kind of funny because they set the filming of the climax of this movie where he fights the night slasher in Seattle originally, and they were going to shoot it on like a boat. It was going to be like a boat fight type thing, and it just so happened that during that time period, like there were a lot of mosquitoes out at night.
Gosh.
And Stone's like, I don't want to deal with any of these mosquitoes. And so like they changed it to be in like a weird power plant / smelting.
Like a
we-
steel
we,
mill
we
or
need to talk. We need to
something?
talk about that factory
Yeah.
for a second because it's like right next to an orange grove.
And
I don't get
also,
it.
everyone who works in the factory is in this cult.
And it's also a power plant.
And they also make their own weapons.
Yeah, it's very weird.
Yeah.
But the original ending of this, so he defeats the Night Slasher, and then do you remember that cop who was the one who was always giving him a hard time? I think it was the guy from
The
Deep
one that
Space
eats,
or
eats too much sugar.
something like that. He's the guy with the glasses, and he's always on.
He's just
Cobretti's case.
he's just the detective that's always busting his balls.
Yeah.
Oh, the one he punches.
Yeah,
Yeah,
the one who
okay,
punches at
okay.
the end. So originally, that guy was actually going to be the secret leader of the cult, and Cobretti was going to find that out, and so he was the one pulling the Night Slasher's strings and stuff, and he was also the one recruiting from inside the police station and leaking information about where Bridget Nielsen was going to be and stuff like that.
Huh.
And so that was going to be like the big twist at the end, and Cobretti was going to fight him and stuff like that. And then they just ran out of money, I think, and they were like, we'll just punch him out at the end.
We'll just take him out in the same.
It would have been an
And-
interesting twist, but I don't really think it mattered.
They'll just take him out in the same factory that they killed the Terminator in. So
Yeah,
it's
yeah.
no big deal.
Yeah.
Yeah, so let's talk about the climax of this movie. So basically, Sylvester Stallone is trying to get Bridget Nielsen safely away from this
He's
cult.
like moving her from safe house to safe
Yeah.
house.
And they stop at this motel, and one of the cops who's assigned to the detail is secretly a member of this cult, and she kind of lets them know where they're going to be, and they attack him and Bridget Nielsen. And so like you have this, I want to say it's like a 30-minute sequence.
Oh yeah.
Of-
What's the last part of the movie?
Yeah, it's like the whole last act of the movie
Yeah.
where basically it goes from like a shootout to a car chase to another shootout in an orange grove to like a shootout in a
Factory.
in a
Smelting factory.
no to like a power plant,
Steel mill.
and then it goes into a steel mill, and the entire time you're watching this, you're just like, where are these people?
Yeah. How do they get from there to there? My God.
And it's like one weird like kind of set piece to
I kept
another.
going to myself like, oh man, this is peak 80s because
yeah.
we don't know how many bullets he has.
Yeah.
Where does he keep pulling all these grenades out of his ass
I
from?
know, right?
You know, it's
He's
just
got
like
every weapon.
it's got perfect balance on the back of that pickup truck,
Uh-huh.
and it's just, yeah, it was amazing. It
Yeah,
was amazing.
that automatic weapon he uses, so like that's on like all the posters. It's got like the laser sight on it.
Yeah.
And I guess that was like a real weapon, but it just never caught on.
Uh-huh.
Like with use.
Wasn't the movie poster for this the inspiration for the movie poster for Wolf Cop?
It's been the inspiration for a lot of
Lots of
different
stuff.
movie
Okay.
posters. But yeah, like another Wolf Cop was a takeoff of
This-
the Cobra poster.
This is like one of the best movie posters ever.
I know.
I love it. If you're into Stallone, man, it's great.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, I think
We need to get it, and you just gotta go right
Yeah,
there.
I think Steven Crowder has like a mock-up of that on his show, and I know Razor Fist has a copy of it.
We should
Yeah.
we should get one of the posters from this movie, but put Alex's face for Stallone.
I'm sure
I'm just-
Alex would appreciate. Alex would probably hate this movie.
For
well,
sure.
he would probably hate all these movies,
Yeah.
but I'm just glad we got a chance to watch this again. I mean, honestly, is it time for final thoughts? Are we
It's
there
close.
yet?
It's close. But you can still speak.
Okay. I mean, this was just a nice visit to my teenage years.
Mm-hmm.
I don't think I've watched it since I was 16.
Really?
To be honest with you. Yeah. And when we decided to do weird 80s cops movies this week, I instantly just said Cobra. It's like, oh, I want to watch Cobra.
I'm glad you did.
Let's do it, because this is peak Stallone for me. This is one of my favorite bad cop movies. I mean, it's not a good movie.
No.
It's far from a good movie, but it's very nostalgic for me.
I told Kadish when we were about to watch this, because he'd never seen it before, we were sitting down to watch this, and I was like, so I just want you to know, this is probably my number one cop movie of all time. And I'm really glad that you picked it, me.
Yeah, it's good. That's good. I didn't know you liked it that well.
I love it.
You know who else loves this movie is the director, Nicholas Winding Refn. He's the guy who did a bunch of like weird arty movies like The Neon Demon, and he also did this movie Drive with Ryan Gosling. And in that movie, he has Ryan Gosling chewing on a matchstick, just like Marion Cobretti does in this movie. There's talk about a remake of Cobra.
They're going to fuck it up.
I wish they wouldn't do that.
Well, they don't know if it's going to be a series or a movie yet, but Sylvester Stallone, I think in 2019, he was talking about how he's in talks to kind of get a remake going with Robert Rodriguez at the helm.
Okay, you have my attention.
Yeah, so Robert Rodriguez is going to be directing something that is related to Cobra.
Maybe it'll be just about the zombie squad or something. That'd be all right.
Yeah, I would watch a zombie squad movie.
Yeah, just the name Zombie Squad sells itself.
Yep.
But Robert Rodriguez directing a badass kind of Cobra-esque character, I'd be down for that.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. All right, so let's do final thoughts. Vader, what are your final thoughts about Cobra, and would you recommend it?
I just kind of said it. It's just a trip down bad cop movie lane for me. I had a good time with this. It's not a good movie. It's a fun movie. I'd probably grade it somewhere 2.5 stars, maybe 3.
Oh, you're
depending
so
on
short,
my mood.
V.
I don't think I am. I mean, it's not that great, but it's still fun. It's a good watch, but it was a lot more silly than I remembered it being. I've watched too many movies since I saw this when I was a kid, to where the transitions from like the orange grove to the factory make 0 sense. Stuff like that.
That's part of its charm.
I know, but it's hard for me to look past that kind of stuff now. It's just weird. But
if you're asking an 80s Stallone movie to make sense, you're asking too much.
Yeah, it was still fun. I enjoyed it. I'll stretch it and go 3 stars.
3 stars.
3 stars. Yeah.
Right.
Barely.
It's not a 5-star movie.
2.85 stars.
All right, Jude, what did you think of this movie?
Okay, so as I said, this is probably my all-time favorite 80s cop movie. That being said, I'm not sure what category to put it in, if we're putting it in a Stallone movie or if I'm rating it on the basis of it being an 80s cop movie. Either way, it's probably a 5-star movie for me. 5 out of 5 matchsticks.
Okay, so this being my first watch of it, I don't have any real nostalgic feelings for it, but this is a quintessential 80s movie.
Oh, yeah.
This is like, when you think of 80s movies, this is what you get. And I feel like there was a big kind of lull in the middle of this film where it was just kind of boring for a while.
You mean like when you fell asleep?
Yeah. I fell asleep during this movie. I had to go back and rewatch it. But there's just a long stretch where I think they're trying to develop the relationship between Cobra and the Bridget Nielsen character.
Ingrid.
And I felt like that kind of slowed things down a bit. But the action's not very good. But at the same time, Stallone is just he's Stallone.
Uh-huh.
Yeah.
And if you're a Stallone fan, this movie is awesome.
Yeah, it's not good, but it's badass.
It is very badass. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what saves this film and makes it enduring is it's not nostalgic necessarily, but it's just it's from a different era. It's got the same kind of Tango and Cash vibe, and I love Tango and Cash. And so I'm just down for it, Sylvester Stallone just walks around with a gun stuffed down the front of his pants the entire movie.
Because his gun would not dare to fire unless his finger was on the trigger.
And it's monogrammed with an actual cobra on it and stuff like that. And,
it's so badass.
And he's got the trench coat and the glasses, which I'm convinced are painted black because you can't see any reflection in them and stuff like that.
He wears them the entire movie.
And he's got the laser sight. he's using that laser sight to like, you know, either target fools or fool fools.
And like, I just love the action scenes where he's like firing bullets into people and they're like jumping up off of the floor and falling backwards as the like the power of the gun lifted them off of the floor and then slew them. It's just, it's love it. Love it.
Yeah. And I mean, this is a fun watch. I had a really good time watching this movie. And what can you say? It's a Stallone film. If you love Stallone, you're going to love this movie. And the whole 80s attitude about like, you know, screw civil liberties, like let's just kill the bad guys. And it's very black and white. And there's something simple about that, which I kind of miss. So I give this a, you know, solid 3 zombie squads out of 5. I think that this was a very fun movie. All right, guys. So that was our talk about Cobra. We're going to take a quick break and then we're going to come back and talk about another 80s cop movie, AKA Maniac Cop. Hey everyone, welcome back. And if you want to help support the show and get some cool merchandise to you know, show off to your friends, go check out saltynerdstore.com. We have all types of cool t-shirts up there that have some neat little movie references, so you might want to check out some of those. And all the money goes back into the show. So if you don't want to be a patron, you can always just buy some of our merch, and you know, so you get some cool stuff to wear, and we get some money to help, you know, buy some new equipment and make more content for you. All right, guys. So our next movie is going to be the one and only 1988 classic horror action thing called Maniac Cop. And Jude, what is this movie all about?
I think you just summed it up so perfectly. It's like a horror action cop thing.
Yeah.
Thing.
All right.
That's correct.
1988 Maniac Cop. Rated R with a runtime of 1 hour, 25 minutes. Had a budget of $1.1 million. Vader, what do you think this little ditty brought into the box?
What was this budget?
$1.1 million.
$400,000.
Close. $671,000.
I actually think this movie made close to $47 million if you'd taken like DVD and VHS sales and stuff like that.
We're not taking that into consideration. No. Stop fucking correcting me.
Come on.
It got 2 sequels, so like it had to have made some money.
I mean, this is like a cult movie, right?
A little bit.
Oh,
yeah.
for sure.
Yeah, because I'd never. This is my first watch.
I think are there Maniac Cop sequels, or were the sequels based like?
No, it's Maniac Cop 1, 2, and 3.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh God, I want to see the other ones now.
Sorry.
And funny enough, so like, you know, in the 80s when they did sequels to like horror movies, they get like different directors and different writers to come in, but all 3 Maniac Cop movies had the same director, the same writer, and the same star, Robert Zadar, in all 3.
Oh.
Yeah.
That's cool.
Bruce Campbell's not in all 3?
They kill him off in the second one.
I'm really upset that you ruined that. Here's the synopsis.
He didn't even want to do the first one.
Oh,
yeah,
he's my favorite part.
Yeah, there's a little story behind that we'll get into.
Okay, so here's the synopsis. Maniac Cop. Bruce Campbell is cheating on his boring wife. He's been making pillow talk with his lady cop / undercover prostitute friend. The Maniac Cop is killing everyone. He's a former bad boy cop, Matt Cordell, whose philosophy was shoot now, ask questions later. After the politicians put him away for violating civic rights, he's sentenced to Gen Pop in Sing Sing, where a bunch of people he put there live. He almost got killed in prison, but the medical examiner faked his death, and he's still alive, and now he kills the innocent. He kills Bruce Campbell's wife and frames him for it. There's some chick with a limp who's in on it. She knows who Maniac Cop used to be and wants to help him because underneath all that murder is a really sweet boy. And then he kills her. Bruce Campbell and his lady cop mistress are on a mission to stop the Maniac Cop by saying Klaatu, Barata, Niktu, or discuss.
Yeah. I guess he was too busy not being a Chinese jet pilot to stop Maniac Cop this time around.
I don't get that.
I don't either.
You guys disappoint me. All right, so
you disappoint yourself.
Vader, what do you think about Maniac Cop?
I don't know, man. This movie didn't do much for me.
Don't be a bitch, Vader.
I'm being a bitch. I didn't like it. I did not like this movie.
How can you not like a movie that has 2 actors whose nickname is both the Chin?
I know.
This was like a Battle of the Chins movie between Bruce Campbell and Robert Zadar.
Listen, I'm going to be straight up honest.
The sexy chin work in this movie.
I'm going to break the nerd sphere here. I'm not a huge Bruce Campbell fan.
Get the fuck out.
I'm really not. I like
no, seriously, leave.
No, Army of Darkness is okay, but
you were never an Evil Dead guy?
No.
Oh, I love
really
Evil
wasn't.
Dead.
I think it's just gratuitous foam and latex everywhere. It's just, it doesn't do much for me at all.
Bruce Campbell's one of those actors where like he's in a lot of bad movies.
He is.
But he's awesome in everything he does.
I completely disagree.
Like I could just watch Bruce Campbell read a phone book. I love watching him do stuff.
I just love watching his chin move around while he does stuff.
I mean, I don't have anything against Bruce Campbell. I just don't like a lot of movies like this.
This was babyface Bruce Campbell.
Yeah.
This was like early in his career. Like he did this movie because he needed the work. His buddy Sam Raimi, basically, he wasn't really truly involved in this, but he did shoot the parade footage. Sam Raimi directed that, and Ted Raimi, his brother, was the reporter on there.
Okay.
And Sam Raimi actually helped put together the, I guess, like calling card piece, the trailer for this movie, in order to help them get financing in order to make it. And so through Sam Raimi, Bruce Campbell was able to get this job because he was a no-name actor. Nobody knew who he was back at this point. And so he did this movie. He didn't like the movie. He didn't think it was a good movie, but he did it because he needed the paycheck. And it just so happened that this movie turned into kind of like a cult.
I would agree with
horror
him
movie.
on that. I would agree.
Oh, I think we can all agree it's not a good movie.
It's not a good movie.
But it is an interesting movie. Like I haven't seen this movie in maybe like 10 years. And it kind of holds up better than I thought it would. Jude, what did you think of this movie?
I mean, I loved it. This has been on my watch list for a long time. I had never seen it before. And I was very excited that we were watching it for this.
Yeah, didn't you think the Maniac Cop was out to kill bad guys at first?
Well, before I watched it, yes. But I dug it. I followed the story, and I liked that they did something different that wasn't necessarily super predictable. But I mean, the 80s were a time when you're a bad guy just killed whoever. I mean, like, you know, this is coming from the time of your bad guy would kill people if they had sex or drank, you know, during a movie. And like your Jason Voorhees characters would just like murder anyone who wasn't a good girl or good boy.
Well, as long as they were under 18.
Yeah.
So.
And like in this movie, immediately, like Bruce Campbell is having an affair, and so now the you would think that the motivation would be like, oh, he's a bad guy, I must kill him. But no, he just wants to kill everyone equally. It's equal opportunity. And like even his lady love, who was like, I think she was his fiance before he had his accident, and she's like always still loved him and always like tried to like help him, and she knows who he is underneath, and then like she just kind of gets in the way, so he kills her too. And it's just like an awesome, like, just everyone is fair game with murder.
Yeah, the actual monster in this movie, the Maniac Cop, it's kind of weird trying to figure out what exactly he is, because he starts off as just like a dude. He gets put into prison. He gets, you know, assaulted in the shower, of course. Mm-hmm. And you think he gets killed because he gets his face all slashed up and all this other stuff. But then the medical examiner like notices that he's still alive and brings him back to life somehow.
Yeah, I never really.
But he has brain damage.
But the thing is like, you know, there are scenes in this movie where he gets shot multiple times, and he just like shrugs it off, and like he seems to be able to heal and just like take like, you know, a pounding. So there's like a supernatural element to it, but they don't really do a good job in introducing a supernatural element to this.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe they explain that in 2 and 3.
Hopefully. I mean, maybe. Don't you dare spoil it for me.
They might. Like I haven't actually seen the sequels to these things.
Have you seen this one before?
I have seen this one before because I'm a Bruce Campbell fan, and so like when I was younger, I wanted to watch this because Bruce Campbell was in it. And then when I found out that they killed him off in the second one, I was like, I don't want to watch it, because it happens within like the first like 5-10 minutes.
God damn it! Why do you keep spoiling things? We're watching it tonight.
Spoiling things from like 30, 40 years ago.
You know I want to watch this movie.
All right, but anyway, Robert Zadar, which we just talked about, Samurai Cop on one of our previous episodes, and he was, you know, one of the main actors in that. And he's one of these actors who he shows up in so many bad movies. Unfortunately, he's passed away by now. But he's kind of like one of those things where, like, if you've seen a bad movie, Robert Zadar, chances are he's in it. Mm-hmm. And so he plays the Maniac Cop in this film. And oddly enough, he was actually an actual police officer in real life who worked in Chicago before he got into acting.
I did not know that. That's cool.
And so he brings his cop knowledge to the role, I guess you could say. But Robert Z'Dar, he actually suffered from a condition called cherubism, I believe it was. And this is like the overgrowth of bones in the face that give you like a rounded face appearance. So like you kind of look like a cherub. And yeah. And that's one of the reasons why he had such a massive jaw and this kind of distinctive looking face. In fact, his character in Tango and Cash, when, he shows up as one of the prisoners that take on Sylvester Stallone and Kurt Russell, his name in that movie is The Face.
That's rude.
Yeah, but I mean, like it was his thing, and that's what made him so like recognizable.
You might as well own it if it's people are going to ask anyway, right?
Hey, you with the face.
All right, so Vader, I know you didn't like this movie, but what was your favorite part of this film?
I don't know, dude. Probably the ending. The last chase scene. I don't know, man. This movie, I had a hard time this movie had a hard time keeping me interested. I'll put it that way. Just didn't do much for me. I thought it was just kind of cheap and
all right,
low budget.
Let me ask you this: what was your least favorite part? What did you think was the dumbest thing you saw in this movie?
Again, I don't know. It just this movie was just kind of a flat line the whole way for me. It just didn't do anything for me at all. Mm-hmm. I hate to shit on it that way because, I mean, it's sort of interesting, but like you said, they don't explain things. They don't explain what kind of a monster this guy is. Why can he take 15 bullets and keep on ticking? What is this guy? Is he like Jason Voorhees? Is he? They never explain it. So and the side characters I just never got into, and it's just not a good movie for me. I'm not into these low budget, not scary horror movies. Mm-hmm. It was just kind of bleh, I guess. I don't know. Jude's bird dogging me hard over here.
Jude, I'm literally smiling at you.
Yeah. What was your favorite part of the movie?
I 1,000% disagree with Vader. He's wrong on all counts. I love the prostitute girlfriend who's actually a police officer, but she's undercover as a prostitute.
She's a vice cop.
She's a vice cop. And the whole movie, she's in her hooker gear.
With her hooker haircut.
She's got crimped hair. She's got these fucking lashes.
I did like the crimped hair.
Yeah,
that was very
you
80s.
did. Yeah. And she's like trying to help him solve the mystery. I love it. It's so 80s. It's so like awesomely bad, which is just my cup of tea. And it's got horror aspects in it. And like if you ask me to sit down and watch a bunch of cop movies, this is what I want to watch. I don't want to watch Tango and Cash. I want to watch something where people are just getting killed willy-nilly for no reason, and it's awful and nonsensical and terrible, but like gorgeous and awesome and lovely and just exactly what I want in a movie.
I mean,
plus Bruce Campbell.
Basically, he's like Psycho Frankenstein cop, right?
It's like he's Jason Voorhees, but not quite.
He's like the public servant version of Jason Voorhees.
Kind of, yeah.
But they really don't ever explain why or how.
That's true, but you have to subvert your expectations.
It doesn't really matter in the long run.
It's not for everyone.
At least with Jason, you're just assuming there's some supernatural stuff going on.
You get some lore with Jason, for sure.
But
I think the lore comes in with the sequels on this one. So I don't know. One of the interesting things about this movie is that for at least the first 3/4 or I guess 2/3 of this movie, Tom Atkins is the main character, and he plays Detective Frank McRae, and he's kind of the one investigating these cop killings. And we recognized him as the main character from John Carpenter's The Fog, because he was in that movie too, and he plays a very old-looking guy who hooks up with a very young-looking Jamie Lee Curtis, if you guys remember correctly. And so, like, for the longest time, he's in this movie, and he's wearing some really sharp outfits throughout the course of this film. And what's interesting is that, so he's the one who's investigating this case, and Bruce Campbell's kind of like the scapegoat. He's the one that the cops are blaming these killings on. And for a lot of the movie, Bruce Campbell's kind of like a very small character, and we're following Tom Atkins. And then at the beginning of the third act of this film, they kill Tom Atkins. They just like throw him out of a window. He dies, and our main character is dead. And then it shifts to Bruce Campbell and his, vice cop girlfriend are now our main characters, and we start following them. And it's a very weird kind of way to do a movie where you kill off your main character after the bulk of the movie's done, and then now we're following completely new characters. But because it's Bruce Campbell, we're kind of like, yeah, okay,
exactly,
I'm down for it. But I actually really liked Tom Atkins in this. Like, I feel like he fit the role really well. Like I was down for his investigation, and it was kind of sad to just see him so unceremoniously killed at the end of the movie.
I think part of my dislike is probably stems from my disdain of like low budget movies.
Yeah, you don't really like kind of schlocky, low budget films. You like Hollywood movies.
Yeah. I mean, they spent $1 million in the 80s.
On what? Aquanet?
Well, it's
probably
funny.
The crimping iron.
so this movie takes place in New York, right? Mm-hmm. Well, they were only able to afford 3 days of shooting exteriors in New York. Everything else, I think, was like shot in Canada or something like that to save money. So yeah, this was like 80s low budget filmmaking at its best. But one of the interesting things is we talked about how...
Well, I don't agree, because I've watched other low budget 80s movies that Jude's made us watch, and I've enjoyed them.
Yeah, like what?
Like Chopping Mall?
Yeah, that's a good example.
You did not enjoy Chopping Mall.
Chopping Mall every chance you get.
But I liked it better than this. At least it played up on the camp. You know what I mean?
Well, that's also a Roger Corman movie.
But this movie doesn't have that appeal to it. This movie's just like bad. I don't know what else to say.
I feel like for $1 million movie, it did its job well.
I agree.
It looks good.
Deathstalker, that's low budget, bad.
Another Corman movie.
Yeah.
Maybe Corman is the secret to these kind of movies.
Yeah, he's probably the jelly that holds your sandwich together.
Maybe.
So, well, Corman just doesn't care about the quality.
Well,
so he just let people.
So they needed to care less in order for Vader to like it more.
I guess something like that. So we talked about
didn't have any boobs, did it?
No, it didn't.
That's probably what did it.
But we talked about with Cobra that the writer director Nicholas Winding Refn really liked that movie, and it turns out that he is actually taking Maniac Cop and turning it into an HBO series. Yeah, so basically he's working with another guy named John Himes, and Riffin, like he did Drive, Only God Forgives, both with Ryan Gosling. He did the Neon Demon with Keanu Reeves, and he also did this Amazon series, which I thought was actually brilliant. But it's the type of thing that you guys would hate.
Okay.
But like if you're a film geek, you would love this series. It's called Too Old to Die Young. And it's like, I think it's either 6 or 8 episodes, and it's kind of an LA crime story.
It sounds awful.
But it's extremely highbrow. Like if you watch it, you're going to be like, what the hell am I watching?
Yeah, I don't want to watch it.
Yeah. But he's been a big fan of this movie for a long time. And so he's taking it and he's going to turn it into like a highbrow HBO water cooler series. And he's
like
been
True Detective?
Yeah, something like that. But with horror aspects and in Nicholas Winding Refn's style, which is extremely stylized and very kind of impressionistic and weird.
I'm going to watch it, but I'm going to watch it with my brow furrowed like this.
So it's the potential for it to be kind of something special and interesting and good is there, but it's going to be something that probably not everyone, especially people who like the original Maniac Cop, would probably be into.
When is this happening?
I don't know. They've been developing it for a number of years, but I'm thinking that they said that they should be in production by 2022. But it's hard to say because a lot of times HBO will just develop stuff and it'll not really go anywhere.
As long as it's not going to be like something that looks like it came out of the WB. I'm going to watch it.
No. Like if you've seen Too Old to Die Young, it looks amazing. Like the cinematography, the colors, like Nicholas Winding Refn is just like a very interesting like visual director, but his style is very it's not realistic. to say the least. And so like it's almost David Lynch in the way the actors.
This is sounding even weirder
things.
now.
Yeah, he's a very weird director.
All right.
So like I'd be interested to see his take on this material.
Okay, I'll say this sounds interesting. It also sounds weird, and I'm trepidatious to say
But
the least.
I just like the idea of this very arty director who's made some very interesting films, taking a schlock 80s horror movie and turning it into an HBO kind of like premiere show.
Sounds
It's a very
atrocious.
interesting concept. Sure. And you know what? Honestly, beggars can't be choosers, and I feel like a beggar in a land of just shitty movies. So yeah, fucking give it to me. I'll watch it. Just make it good.
All right, let's do final thoughts and ratings. Vader, what are your final thoughts, and what rating would you give this?
I don't really have a lot of thoughts to give on this movie. I didn't enjoy this movie. You know, I don't know. It just didn't do anything for me. I mean, I guess if you're into this kind of poorly made, cheap 80s stuff, you'll be into this. It's not a 1-star crap fest, but it's like a 1 1/4 star bad crap fest of a movie. So, yeah, I don't know. Not for me.
It's not Raiders of the Lost Ark.
No, not even close. No. I'm sorry, Jude. I just did not like this movie at
Vader's so passive aggressive. He's like, well, I mean, I guess if you like that sort of movie, that's fine for you.
If you have bad taste like Jude.
Yeah.
All right, Jude, what did you think of Maniac Cop?
I loved it. It was a first watch for me. It's been on my watch list for a number of years. I was excited to see it. It didn't disappoint me. It's not my number one. It's not Cobra, but I will give it a solid 4 out of 5.
Wow, that is strong.
Bulletproof vests.
That's crazy because I'm like, it's almost a 1, and she's like, it's almost a 5.
Are you upset that we're not like-minded?
Not at all, because
every couple has their issues.
I totally expected you to really like this movie, and you should totally expect me to.
You better be careful, Vader, because she's going to demand her stockings back.
It's okay.
You're stretching those things
out.
She hasn't worn them in years, she said. What difference does it make? But yeah, I don't know. Not for me, man. Not for me.
So, because this is a Bruce Campbell movie, like technically, it's not a Bruce Campbell movie, but he's in it. Mm-hmm. I have a certain kind of nostalgia for this movie. And now that I've grown to appreciate Robert Zadar more after having seen him in more terrible movies,
right?
I have a newfound appreciation for this film as well. And I don't know, like I hadn't seen this movie in years, and I had a really good time watching it with Jude, and Tom Atkins, and just kind of, I think I was in high school when I last saw this movie, and so watching it as an adult, I have a whole nother appreciation for it. So I would definitely give this 3 chins out of 5. I thought it was
a solid rating.
Yeah. I think it's a fun 80s horror movie, and it's one of those things where it's low budget, it's very guerrilla style, but it's slick, it's got some good ideas to it, it's got some good cinematography to it, and if you're a fan of the people who are in it, you're probably going to enjoy it for what it is. And I would definitely recommend it if people are looking for like a fun 80s movie to watch. All right, guys, so those were our thoughts on Maniac Cop, and we're going to take a quick break, and we'll be right back after a word from these sponsors. Welcome back, everybody. And if you want to join our Discord, you can find the link in the description of this video below. Or if you guys are listening to this on Spotify or one of the audio platforms, please go check out our YouTube channel at saltynerdvideo.com. There you can find a link to our Discord. And we're trying to build that up to get our community talking about, some of the movies we talk about, giving us suggestions on what to watch and what not to watch, and all that good stuff. We really enjoy doing watch parties on there and things like that. So please come join us in our growing Discord community. We'd really appreciate it. And one of these days, I'm going to have our special URL that goes right to our Discord. So you'll be able to go right there. But for now, link in the description. Anyways, guys, we're going to round out 80s Cop Week by talking about one of my favorite guilty pleasures, Action Jackson. So Jude, take it away. What is Action Jackson all about?
1988, Action Jackson. Rated R with a runtime of 1 hour 36 minutes. Had a budget of $7 million. Vader, what do you think this brought into the box?
$7 million? I'm going to go negative 500,000.
Don't be an asshole.
Oh, I'm being an asshole.
You think it actually paid money out?
I think
people who saw it?
they had to pay money to be in this piece of shit. Yeah.
It brought $20 million into the box office.
But off of how big of a budget?
$7 million.
Yeah, so it was technically a success.
Yeah, I can't believe this doesn't have like 4 or 5 sequels.
Well, there's a reason for that we'll get into.
Okay. All right, well, here's your synopsis. Carl Weathers is Jericho Action Jackson, a semi-disgraced cop who loves his vintage 1966 Impala. Demoted from lieutenant to sergeant for roughing up the sex predator son of Craig T. Nelson, who happens to be the most powerful big bad in town. Flash forward 2 years, Craig T. Nelson is being awarded Man of the Year, and he's only gotten bigger and badder. He's got Vanity hooked on heroin, he murders his wife, Sharon Stone, and he's killing off witnesses left and right. Jackson must get to action and bring Craig T. Nelson to justice while protecting the only remaining witness, Vanity. He's punching through windshields, leaping over speeding cars, making friends, kicking ass, romancing, kicking down doors, detoxing bitches, driving cars through mansions, and being a general badass without his lieutenant stripes. Thinking he's gotten rid of Jackson, Craig T. throws a birthday party for his friend, whom he's planning to murder. Jackson shows up, foils the plan, saves the girl, and in a final man-to-man showdown shows Craig T. just who Action Jackson is, earning his stripes back, and Vanity quit heroin cold turkey, so she's fine now. The end.
That was hottest. All right, so Vader, why do you hate this movie so much?
There's nothing about this movie I like. Nothing about this movie. It's like this was like a script that got put on Arnold's desk, and he said, "No, this fucking sucks. I'm not doing it." Yeah, that's what I feel.
Send it to Carl Weathers.
Yeah, give it to Carl.
I don't want to give it to the black guy.
Is bad. I mean, it's basically all the guys from Predator except Arnold. In a really bad cop movie.
There are so many people in this movie that were also in Die Hard, and I want to talk about that real quick.
And Predator.
Yeah.
Basically, this was a Joel Silver movie, and so Joel Silver just used the same actors in the 80s for like a lot of his movies.
So Clovis, the guy who takes his car, is also Argyle from Die Hard, the limo driver. Al Leong, am I saying that right? Is the henchman, the Asian henchman that eats the candy bar?
He's the Asian henchman in pretty much every 80s movie.
Yeah.
Like he was in Lethal Weapon. He's been in a lot of stuff.
Robert Davey is the FBI Big Johnson in Die Hard, and then he's the CI in this one who's
and he was in Predator too.
And then
Goonies.
Mary Ellen Trainor. Oh, yeah. And also the Goonies connection. Mary Ellen Trainor and Robert Davey were both in Goonies. Mary Ellen Trainor was the news anchor in Die Hard. She's the secretary in this one. There's so many Die Hard connections.
There's also a lot of Predator connections because you got Bill Duke, who's the lieutenant or captain or whatever.
The guy who shaves compulsively.
He was Mac in Predator.
Yeah.
And then you have Billy from Predator who plays like the drug dealer in this movie.
Who was he in Predator?
He was the big Indian guy.
He was the best.
The tracker, Billy.
He was the best dude in the movie.
That guy, yeah.
He died on the log.
Yeah.
Yeah.
On the shitting log?
No, dude, you asked me why I didn't like this movie.
Do you have notes?
Oh, I have some notes. Because this movie is just fucking awful.
I'll shut your mouth.
Vanity's boobs are good.
What about Sharon Stone's boobs?
They're okay. They're not like Vanity's boobs.
Okay.
Vanity, yeah. But there was some boobs, so I'm giving it an extra half a star.
Okay.
It stayed out of the 1-star crap fest because of boobs.
Okay.
That's it. That's the only thing that saved this movie. Coach.
Yes.
I like Coach to be Coach.
Craig T. Nelson.
He's a horrible bad guy. I do not like to see him as a bad guy. He's typecast as
it wins you.
I just don't like it. I didn't think he played it off well. I don't think he was believable as that character. His fighting scenes were atrocious. It's like when he was doing karate, there was like some dude underneath him with legs that would kick up like this, or it looked fake. It was bad. The movie was the sound in the movie was horrible. I had to keep on turning the volume up and down between the stupid explosions and the dialogue. I thought things were out of frame, out of focus. It seemed weird. Vanity was awful. She was a terrible, terrible actress. It's like
she's not been good in anything.
She's like reading her shit off cue cards, though.
She has to sing in everything she's ever been in. Did you notice Biff Tannen is the?
I noticed him as the jokey cop.
Yeah,
with the black dude. Yeah, they were awful, horrible. The Goon Squad guys. Can we go any more crazy over the top bullshit than these rappelling off of fucking skyscrapers?
Dude, the rocker ninjas
blowing up yachts just to do hits on
I love that Craig T. Nelson has like a stable of white guy ninjas with terrible hairdos,
and I'm pretty sure they were Vanity's band. If you look at the band and you look at the
I gotta go back and rewatch that now.
At least the blonde dude with the big hair. Pretty sure he's like the saxophone player or something.
The guy that does the ninja knives.
I don't know. I'm pretty sure it was the same dudes. Carl Weathers. This was like some kind of weird. It's like, hey, let's throw Carl Weathers a bone and see if we can make him an action star. And then they should have had, like this was Sam Jackson. Was that should have been? He should have been in this movie.
Samuel Jackson.
Yeah.
Okay.
Isn't that who I'm thinking of? The black guy's been in everything. Right?
Snakes on a Plane?
Yeah, that's it. This would have been better if it was a Sam Jackson movie. This shit here with this kid, when he passes out at the beginning because they're talking about Action Jackson. It's like, get out of here. It's just dumb.
It is weird to see like Thomas F. Wilson, aka Biff, in something that's not Back to the Future.
I know.
Yeah, it was confusing. It was just a bad. Was it an action movie? Was it a blaxploitation movie? Was it like Carl Weathers trying to be like in an Arnold type role or something? He had the stupid one-liners that didn't play right. They didn't come off well.
Was this before or after Predator?
So basically the idea for this movie came into being while they were filming Predator.
Okay.
And Carl Weathers would have conversations with the producer Joel Silver of Predator about how much he loves blaxploitation films, and they kind of bonded over blaxploitation films. And so Carl Weathers was like, I really want to do a blaxploitation film, and Joel Silver was like, okay, come up with a pitch and let me hear it.
Action.
And so while he was filming Predator at the hotel, like he'd be talking to like the stunt coordinator guy, for instance, and he'd be telling him his ideas for like what he wanted to do with like a blaxploitation film, and the guy was like, hey man, like, hire me for that movie. I'm in like Action Jackson. And Carl Weathers was like, hey, that's a really good name for a title. And so he took that and
stole it.
Well, he appropriated it. And basically, this was kind of Carl Weathers' baby. Like he came up with the idea for it and the story for it. And nowadays he's kind of directing and stuff like that. But this was going to be his vehicle to kind of launch him into a franchise of his own. And
you could tell that's what they were trying to do.
Yeah.
But man, they failed.
Well, they didn't really fail, because basically this movie, so it was made for like $8 million. It made $20 million at the box office, but it made $45 million in VHS sales. So this was a big home video hit. Mm-hmm. And they always wanted,
back when home videos were the thing you did on a weekend.
Exactly. And so basically they had plans to make this into a bigger franchise, but for some reason the company that originally produced it got sold and acquired, and different studios just got the rights to this movie, and they just never did anything with it. Kind of died on the vine. So unfortunately, even though like plans were in motion to make more of these, it just never came to fruition because of kind of BS Hollywood business type stuff. So
I mean, this movie came out at a time when they were making all kinds of movies like this, and it just feels like it was poorly made.
Well, this movie, it's kind of credited as being the end of the blaxploitation fad in Hollywood. I think this movie and two other films kind of came out around the same time that were kind of blaxploitation films. I'm Gonna Get You, Sucker was one of them.
I'm talking more about,
and they kind of like Hollywood, after these movies came out, they're like, we don't want to do blaxploitation anymore.
I mean, I'm talking more about like Die Hard type movies, like with the explosions and the stunts and the fights and the gun fights and the car chases. All of that in this movie, it's all there, but it all seems off. It all seems like it was just poorly made to me.
See, I look at this, and the cinematography of this is very 80s. Like, I love how like the police station's all smoky and like kind of like washed out almost.
It's not smoky so much. It's just like kind of hazy.
Hazy, exactly. Like you know,
there's a fog.
Yeah, if you watch like Predator 2 and like all these like kind of 80s movies, they have like this kind of like haze in the scene. Yeah, right. Like a weird mist, and it gives a diffusion to the lights that they use in these movies. It gives it like a very kind of, because this was something that they did a lot in the 80s, so it gives it a very distinctive 80s look.
For sure. It.
Yeah, I think part of the thing that bugs me about this movie is that you watch a movie like Predator. Predator is one of my top movies of all time.
Yeah,
I love that movie. It still holds up today. It's great. Everything about that movie is awesome. And then all these guys go to this movie, and it doesn't work for me. Everything's off. I don't even know how to explain it.
The thing really I love about this movie is just how kind of 80s cheesy it is. Like the first time that Craig T. Nelson and Carl Weathers kind of share the screen together in this film, he's kind of mocking him. He's like, "Oh, don't you have a nickname? What is it?"
Something like excitement, enthusiasm, esprit de corps.
And Carl Weathers is like, "It's action." It's just like, it's so bad, but like it's because it's that genuine bad that it's endearing, and I love it. And you know, there's a scene where one of the bad guys, of Craig T. Nelson's henchmen, which I think his name is Campbell. So one of the henchmen for Craig T. Nelson, his name's Campbell, he steals a taxi and he tries to run Carl Weathers over with it. And he misses. And Carl Weathers starts chasing after the taxi on foot.
Yes.
Oh, yeah.
And he's keeping up with the taxi on foot. Like, you got to be running 30, 40 miles an hour.
And then he leaps over it and punches out the windshield.
Yeah. There's a scene where he plays chicken with the taxi cab. Taxi goes to ram him. He like somersaults over
Before that, even he's like, "Don't shoot me, come fight me like a man." And that guy interprets that as, "I'm just gonna run him over." And he's like, "Yeah," and he like tries to run him over, and Carl Weathers just jumps over.
But before we even get to meet Carl Weathers, we get introduced to his legend.
Yes.
So in this movie, Thomas F. Wilson and his partner kind of pick up this kid who's like a purse snatcher on the street. And they're scaring him by telling him the legend of Action Jackson. And so by the time we get to the police station, the kid is like so freaked out that he tries to escape, and he ends up kind of crashing into Action Jackson's desk. And the minute that Carl Weathers stands up, he's been built up so much in the first 10 minutes of this movie that the kid just passes out from fear. You know? I mean, it's so
Vader
stupid.
thinks that's stupid.
Yeah. Well, it is stupid.
It is dumb.
But it's fun.
It's silly.
Yeah. And
you know what makes me mad about these last two movies? It's like when I was gone, Tom just sat here and he talked shit about me about how I just hate everything. And he was right. And it's not fucking true. It's not true. But then, we watch these movies and I'm like, God damn it, man. It's just like, yeah.
It's a little bit true.
It's a little true this week.
It's a little bit true every week.
No, it's not. It's not, though.
Unless you pick the movies, it is.
I mean, I even kind of shit on Cobra. I mean, that's not even that great of a movie. But it's just, it is what it is. But
I mean, there's so many elements to this movie where I love Carl Weathers. I've always loved Carl Weathers. He was Apollo Creed. He was... in Predator, he was the CIA guy, and like to see
he's the quintessential sidekick dude.
And dude, he was freaking ripped in this movie.
Because he had his shirt off for no reason.
He had just come off of Predator, where he was taking bets with Arnold over who had the biggest guns.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And so like he's in the best physical shape of his life. Like I just find him immensely like charismatic. Like I love everything that he's in, and just to see him kind of like headline his own movie. There's so many like great moments in this film of Carl Weathers just being a badass, and I love it.
It gives you a film boner.
A little bit, yeah. But there's this like fat bodyguard in this movie. His name's Ed, and he's like this Muslim, and he's Vanity's bodyguard. And when Carl Weathers first goes to kind of meet Vanity, Ed is blocking his way, and Carl Weathers tries to like beat him up. And he just like takes the punches, and he's like,
and he's so good natured about it too. He's just
Carl Weathers.
I'm thinking about punching you out next if you do it again.
Yeah, Carl Weathers is like, are you gonna kick my ass? And he's like, I'm thinking about it. And then Carl Weathers just like tackles him through a door and knocks him out. And that's the last we see of him until the third act, where he just shows up out of nowhere and all of a sudden
Carl Weathers.
all of a sudden
he decided he was badass enough to like get on board with.
Yeah, all of a sudden he's Carl Weathers' best friend, Action Jackson's best friend, and he basically fights all the ninjas for him.
Yeah,
and helps get him free.
Can we talk about the old boxer guy, Kid Sable?
Yeah. What do you want to talk about, Kid Sable?
I just like him.
I mean, the voice.
I love his voice, and I thought his character was really fun. Like how he like shows up at this dinner party at the end, and he's just like knocking dudes out, and people are like, "Hey, aren't you Kid Sable?" And he's like, "You bet your ass I am."
Oh, is that the guy talking like this?
Yeah. So that actor's name is Chino Williams, aka Fats Williams, and he was in a ton of like 80s movies.
Like I know that voice.
Yeah, he's got like this very distinctive voice. Where
is that his real voice?
That's his real voice. Yeah.
I could have saved your time. The man is dead. His balls didn't enjoy it.
You talking like this? That's his real voice.
That's his real voice.
Oh my god! I thought that was a gimmick.
No.
Okay.
It's funny. The casting for this movie is very interesting. Like they got like a lot of, like we said, people from Die Hard, people from Predator, the
Sharon
Joe Silver
Stone.
Basic Instinct.
Well, pre-Basic Instinct, but also pre-Total Recall.
Yeah.
And you actually get to see her naked in this movie a couple times, which is
and dead
yeah,
at the same time.
Yeah, naked and dead. Yeah, which I guess
that was weird.
Yeah, because
when he like murders her and kisses her, it's like,
he murders his wife and she's fully clothed, and then he like takes all of her clothes off and like smears her blood everywhere to make it look like Carl Weathers did it.
Yeah, like they were having an affair and he killed her, type thing. But Sharon Stone, like gorgeous, like this was like peak Sharon Stone time.
This is like when they first introduce her character, and then she turns around, she's wearing that backless dress, and she just kind of shimmies away.
Yeah,
she looks so good.
Yeah, and Vanity looks really good too. And this was before I think she like got heavily into the drugs. So,
I think this is when she got hooked on drugs, because you can clearly see her doing heroin in this movie.
Yeah, and there's a point where like it's so weird because Carl Weathers just breaks into her dressing room and is like, "You're coming with me," and she's like, "Okay."
And then she keeps trying to fuck him the whole time.
Yeah, and he doesn't want anything to do with her. and so like she just kind of goes along with him because he says
in the 80s you could just go somewhere, take a woman, and she went along with it.
But what's funny is there's a certain point where he like leaves her in like his safe house hotel room. That's run by Kid Sable, and so
it's
like
the only room that doesn't have cockroaches.
Yeah,
and the shower works sometimes.
And so like he leaves her, and he's like, "Don't leave this room." And when he comes back, she's gone, and he finds out that she went to another room to score some drugs, and so he goes in there, and Billy from Predator is the one selling her the drugs. And so like they have a fight scene, and she's just sitting there with like the drugs, like, "Oh, ha, 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 ha."
Got my drugs.
Yeah, it was so weird, man.
I don't know, man.
But that's what I love about this movie is like the weirdness, like
the nonsensicalness.
Yeah. For instance, at the beginning of the movie, they have Craig T. Nelson is like a car magnate. Like he's a guy who, he's a car company guy.
He's Elon Musk.
Yeah, basically. And he has a commercial for one of his new cars, and it's like hot, hotter, hottest. That's like the line.
That's the tagline.
And so like you see Carl Weathers see this commercial, and he's just like, I hate that guy. And then at the end of the movie, he gets that car, drives it through Craig T. Nelson's huge mansion, kills his butler.
Oh yeah.
Drives through the hallways, which are big enough for this car. And as he's driving, he says, "Hot, hotter, hottest," and then crashes into Craig T. Nelson's room and has a kung fu fight with the guy.
Well, even the better part about that is he puts it in reverse and parks it next to the bed, and then gets out and has a fight with him. It was crazy.
And they actually bothered to set up that Craig T. Nelson knows how to fight. He has like the fight training scene.
It was so fake.
And so by the time they have their showdown with the guns, they put the guns down and settle it like men with their fists.
Yeah.
That's very 80s.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But I love this movie. I think it's so much fun. Yeah. Jude, what was your favorite part of the movie?
Oh, I don't know. Yes, we watched it together. And then yesterday I just kind of like popped it on and was like just kind of skimming over it just to get my notes in order for it. And I was just having such a good time, like being like, oh, Die Hard oh, yeah, Die Hard. And just like seeing all of the people that I've seen in other things and like the connections with other movies. I don't know, my nerd brain just kind of starts firing off when I see stuff like that. But yeah, I like Carl Weathers, and I loved seeing like a very young Sharon Stone, and it's always fun to see Vanity in something because she's dead now.
She is.
Yeah. She passed away from like kidney failure.
Yeah.
I did not know that.
I think it was 2006, I want to say.
Yeah, it was the early 2000s. So anytime that I see her in something, it's just kind of nostalgic 80s for me, Prince's protege. I don't know. Overall, I enjoyed the experience of watching it. Do I love this movie? No. Do I ever want to see this movie again? Probably not, but it was fun. I don't think I've ever seen this before, so it was a fun watch. But it's not like one of my favorite things ever. It didn't do for me what it did for you, and it didn't do for me like what the other two movies did for me.
Yeah,
So
I think my favorite part of this movie was the fight scene with the taxi cab, where he basically just he runs as fast as the taxi. He can jump over the taxi. Like, to me, that's Action Jackson in a nutshell.
Mm-hmm.
But another like kind of weird scene, I wouldn't say it's my favorite, but it's definitely one that always sticks out in my head, is the balls in a jar scene.
I forgot about that.
Yeah, where he tracks down like this gang to this bar, and he's trying to find an old informant of his, and the guy got killed, and they keep his balls in a jar, and they keep threatening to cut off Action Jackson's balls until Vanity comes in, and she's like, "That's my crazy brother." And then like Action Jackson starts like giving a sermon about Jesus long enough to throw them off so that he can fight them. And it's such a bizarre scene.
It's a weird scene.
But it stands out
It's
in my
kooky.
mind. Yeah, it's very kooky. Just mostly because like they have like this huge knife, and they're just like, yeah, you need that big of a knife to cut off the huge balls on Action Jackson.
So you gonna rate it?
Yeah, well, why don't we go around and rate it? Vader, what was your rating for this?
Oh, 1.5. Yeah, 1.5 stars.
Okay.
It's not good.
And the half stars for the boobs.
Half stars for the boobs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
That's it.
Okay.
It's not good. Not good at all.
Jude, what do you rate this?
Like I said, I had a fun time watching it, but I don't love cop movies. It was a fun watch. I would recommend a one-time watch of it, not necessarily a yearly watch of it. But for me, it's probably only about a 2.5 vanities out of 5 vanities.
Well, for me, this movie is a solid maybe 3.5 mustaches out of 5, because I don't know, there's just something, again, the 80s cinematography, the 80s look and feel, the nostalgia, the blaxploitation vibes, Carl Weathers, the casting, like every kind of 80s cop trope you can think of is in this movie, and it's glorious. I love it. And there's just, I get good nostalgic feelings when I watch this movie, because when I was a kid, I used to catch this on like regular TV, where they would cut out all the nudity and replace the foul language with like, you are a hot dog type thing. And so like, just to like watch it again and appreciate it as an adult, like I really enjoy it. And I'm still a Carl Weathers fan. Like, I see him on The Mandalorian, I'm just like, that's
oh yeah, well, we all
motherfucking
like Carl Weathers.
Yeah,
I get it.
and he's gotten more into behind the camera stuff. And I would love to like see them do like some type of like reboot where Action Jackson passes the torch to a new generation of Action Jackson.
Well, they've already done that with Shaft. So
yeah, but I mean, Shaft. Action Jackson's is its own thing. In fact, Jude kind of got it mixed up with Jumpin' Jack Flash.
I did
when I suggested it.
Yeah, I wasn't sure what movie this was.
Yeah, so I don't know. Like I really enjoy this movie. I think it's a fun 80s cop movie. It's Arnold Schwarzenegger light in terms of its ridiculousness for the time period. And if anyone out there watching or listening hasn't seen this movie, I would highly recommend that they take some time and just check it out, because it's so ridiculously fun. I love it. Yeah.
It's not fun. It's no fun.
It's fun.
It's not fun.
Ish.
Vader, I feel like if you watched it with us,
I don't
you
think
might have had more fun.
I wouldn't have thought anything. No, I wouldn't. We just sit there and argue on your room.
Anyway, guys, that is our discussion of Action Jackson and 80s cop movies in general. Thank you for tuning in and joining us today as we talked about some of our nostalgic feels for Law and Order. Anyway, Vader, 80s Law and Order.
You're such a Captain Poopy.
Are we gonna do a good 80s cop movies show someday?
We just did. Yeah. All right, Vader, where can they find you on the socials?
You can find me at MattVader74 on Twitter and YouTube and Instagram. Yeah.
All right. And Jude, where can they find you?
You can find me at I am Jude Juju on Instagram, Twitter, and TikTok.
And I am Matthew Kadish. You can find me at Matthew Kadish, Kadish on Twitter, and kadishbooks.com takes you to my Amazon page. And as always, thank you for tuning in and stay salty, my friend.